everybody. Welcome back to Season 1, Episode 3 of the Hills to Ripples podcast, Campfire Stories and What Makes a Great Outdoors Person. We got the crew of Harness Adrenaline here, and we're going to throw it on over to Nick and Charles.
What's going on, everybody?
Just chilling, man. Just had a good week and a good little off week for the listeners. So that was cool. We flooded them with information 2 weeks ago, so that off week was probably needed for both sides.
Yeah, no kidding. I'll take a little bit of the blame on that too, just being down in Texas. So
you're getting after it. There's no real blame to be placed.
yeah, had to take that trip. Different experience, different group of guys. We've done a hog hunt in the past, but this was a different outfit, trying out some different properties a little bit further south towards the Gulf, and yeah, it was a blast. Plus, the weather was nice. I had to run away from all this snow.
Yeah, it seems like it's statewide now, or at least has been in spots. So it's kind of crazy.
Yep, for sure. But yeah, man, I'm glad you guys are on here again. I'm excited, as always, to be a part of this and what we have going on as Harness Adrenaline in general. We've had a lot of great memories over the years, and we just keep building more and more. So many times in the woods, it's just, again, I said it in our first podcast, it's just about the time we get to spend out there with amazing people and hear stories, so we've definitely got a few to share tonight. One I think in particular that comes to mind more often than not is I took a trip up to the Western Slope, and we were it was a late season rifle hunt, and I ended up meeting a couple of older gentlemen. I went up there with a friend of mine, Donnie, and we met some older gentlemen that had been hunting their entire lives in Colorado, and just the memories that they shared as a group. The older gentleman, Wendell, he actually was he did sheep, goat, and moose all in the same year, and he was 73 at the time. I think he's going to end up being close to 79 or 80 now, if he's still around. I haven't spoken to him in a few years, but yeah, he talked about those trips and having a guide help him out for all of them, and even at that age, how he was able to accomplish what he wanted to was just amazing to me. These guys spend so much time in the woods, and to be that dedicated to one particular thing for so long is just absolutely wonderful to me.
Oh yeah, I mean the lessons and memories that you make from his memories that you can just take forever. Just, I mean, worth their weight in gold for sure.
Yeah, but always great trips. I our first trip to over by you guys on the west side in the desert country. Goodness gracious, that bow season was pretty nuts. What did we say? We had like 104 during the day.
Yeah,
Bro,
it was
like 10,000 feet.
It was close to, it's close to 100 degrees there up at the 10,000, 11,000 feet there. It was miserable.
It was cooking, man. I mean, even in the shade, it felt like it was 85 degrees.
Yeah, I haven't napped that much on a hunt, maybe ever.
That was a brutal hunt for sure.
Yeah. And then Charles, of course, the first year he came down by me, and we hiked that trail for quite a ways. I mean, bumping those cows on our way out and everything is just crazy to think about what we've been able to do individually and as a group. And there's so much more opportunity still laid before us. So, yeah, no, I think, a lot of the winter is hard for people, and I know it's hard for me too, but waterfowl, Cookie Monster has been stellar when it comes to the waterfowl side of everything. And that has helped a ton to kind of fill this blank space of just deep snow up here in the high country. Granted, I still have to drive through a lot of winter storms to get out east, but it's worthwhile to sit in the blind with a bunch of guys and again enjoy that time. Sunset, sunrise, you guys know the drill. Everything that we always enjoy and love more than anything.
It's funny because where we go, it's you think of it, our whole team, we have 6 people, and you're like, oh, you guys cover Colorado. But if you go where we go to waterfowl hunt, you realize that there is nothing within 2 hours of that place.
Oh, I know, right?
at all. Either any way you go.
Yeah, truly. And it's just flat land everywhere you look.
Yeah, it's like a transformation from Colorado to like mid Kansas. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, yep. And that's what was wild about Texas. Like we were down, like I said, by the Gulf, and it was just so green. That underbrush was so thick. I mean, you couldn't. Cookie and I got to 25 yards of those hogs, and it was literally like couldn't find a shot window anywhere you looked. And even that changes how you have to hunt and gives you a new perspective of what you're trying to accomplish. The area change is just huge. We've spent Charles, you and I have spent all our lives in Colorado and exploring some pretty amazing areas. And truly that type of hunting changes how you know to hunt.
Yeah, no, it really does. Honestly, I would say hunting different game or hunting in different places. I remember, um, going with a buddy and we were hunting in Washington State, going with a buddy and hunting in California, and you just pick up so many different methods, and you're like, oh, I would probably never, when I was whitetail hunting in Kansas, for example, like, oh, I would never do XYZ where I come from. And then you're like, well, basically a foreign land when it comes to new species, new area, new method of take, even for that matter. So it's always a learning process, and it's always super fun.
Yeah, it is. And it just expands your experience that much more. You know, there's definitely a lot of areas where I see in myself that I can improve, but it just makes it that much more enjoyable to know that there's that much growth left still. Um, Thinking about hunting as a kid, our parents, what they taught us, and again, that those rules have changed. There's still some consistency there. Obviously, wind, food, water, bedding, things like that. But again, the pressure has changed tremendously,
Yeah, the
and those
habits have
animals.
changed.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. Those animals have changed. They are not doing what they quote unquote would typically do. And, that brings a level of intensity to it. I know, granted, I got pretty lucky. The first elk I shot, that was, kind of unfair for most people. But it didn't come without trials and tribulations. I think I bow hunted for almost 5 years and shot a doe in 2019 and never found her. Was tracking her, with 3 drops of blood for, 200 yards and never found her. And I was just so sick. Then next year in 2020, I picked up my rifle and was lucky enough to be less than a mile from the truck. I mean, it's just crazy to think about where you learn, even in that experience of being quote unquote unsuccessful, right? Didn't come back with meat. But that experience showed me truly for my time, I wasn't completely ready for bow. I hadn't put the time and effort into it like I had with my rifles in years previous. It showed me what level of drive you need to have to be a bow hunter. There's definitely a separation in there from bow to rifle. So,
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And I mean the thing with bow hunting is like golf, right? It's like it's something that if you stop doing it for a minute amount of time, you will get back and like, oh man, XYZ is wrong. Everything, and it's a completely new. We're talking about new process of hunting. It's a completely new process of like learning um a weapon, right? I mean, because you're hunting and say that you're sighting in at whatever 200 yards, 150 yards, whatever it is, and you're 2 MOA down, 2 MOA to the right. Like, okay, this is easy. I'll just move 2 MOA up, 2 MOA left, and you're set. And then with bow, it's chasing the arrow. So if you've hunted rifle your whole life, like Nick and I had prior to getting into archery, you're like, for me, the sighting issue was the largest hurdle for me because I was like, this doesn't. I have sighted in guns my whole life, and now I'm coming in. I need to chase where the bullet's going. That doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And, from that, and then from a consistent anchor point, I just actually changed last week, matter of fact, from a trigger release to a thumb release.
Okay.
And I mean, again, like I said with golf, it's like getting a hybrid, right, Lane? I mean, it's like going from only hitting drivers, woods, and wedges, and then just having a whole set of hybrids only for a course.
Yeah,
I mean,
completely changes your game.
completely change. I mean, I spent probably maybe an hour and a half, and I finally got where I needed to be. But I mean, I was literally shooting for an hour and a half before
How do
I
you
was
like the
like,
thumb release?
I I like challenging myself.
Okay.
It's cool because I have the wrist thing on it with it,
Yep.
and like a wrist strap, and so it gives me the comfortability because obviously we've all seen what happened when I bought a cheap release way back when 3-4 years ago.
I
And
was just
so
about to ask about that. How you feeling
yeah,
about that?
well, I feel fine because and that's why I transitioned to this one, Lane, because it has a wrist strap, so when I release, there's no worry about me Mike Tysoning myself in the face.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal, man. You definitely messed yourself up. And what's actually crazy is just earlier today, Casey Ryan, shout out to him. He was shooting his bow for the first time in a little while, and actually had an arrow explode on him. He thinks the carbon must have had a fracture in it, and I mean it blew up and bruised his arm pretty dang good, and just completely exploded essentially.
It's insane. I'm glad he's okay.
Yeah.
Shout
I
out
know.
Casey Ryan.
Yep, straight up. That's the dude right there. He gets into the whitetail pretty heavy.
Jesus, dude. That I was just looking in who is it? I think it's Steve Ranella. He posts a lot of like incidents and stuff like that. And there's one that he just posted with someone with an arrow 7 inches in their leg.
Oh,
I saw that.
And I was like, bro, like I don't even know. And I'm it's not making fun of anybody. Let me first get that out. But
Yep.
I can't. I don't understand how it happened. And
No kidding.
that's the thing, it's just like the arrow blowing up. It's just like a release blowing up in your hand, which I've literally had. That's what we were just talking about a little bit earlier. There's things that happen. You're like, what in the world? Like how?
Yep. No, accidents always happen. You take all those safety precautions you can. Learning through him, I'm going to start checking my arrows before I start shooting. I
I was
truly have
just about to
never
say.
done that. I've done it, a couple times before going out to hunt, but even just practice shooting, I've never, done a flex test or anything like that on my arrows. And now after that, I'm definitely going to start putting that into my repertoire before I even pull the bow out.
Well, and so few people even take the time, and I'll even say this with rifles. I have always been a stickler. I think you guys know. I've always been a stickler for sighting in your rifle multiple times a year. Because I don't want to say it's not to the extent of bows, right? But you would be shocked at how much beating your rifle can take, and then the one, you laid it down too hard or something like that, knocks your scope off.
Right.
And let's think about it. Two MOA right, 2 MOA down, like we were talking about earlier, at 300-400 yards. I mean, you're a considerable amount away from your target.
Yep.
And so it's so crazy to just, man, I don't even know. It's awesome. You fall in love with
It
it.
is. Oh, for sure. And again, it's that level of challenge, and it's that level of nothing is ever guaranteed or going to be the exact same at any point in time. There's so much preparation continuously, even in the off season, that people should be doing to hone their skills and their attributes that benefit them the most. For me, I can walk anywhere. You guys know that. I can put anything on my back and pretty much walk out of any country. pushing my limits last year with 2 elk hindquarters coming off of a mountain slope. Thankfully, it was all downhill, and it was only about 2 miles from camp. But there's also been situations where it was like my deer, I shot in 21 was 6.5 miles back one way, and it was me and one other person. Thankfully, the other person was able to carry 4 quarters on her back and help me out, and then I carried pretty much everything else, body and head. And that was a brutal hike, brutal climb out, but it was mostly on trail. That's the funniest thing about it. It's so different situationally. You can be 7 to 10 miles back in the backcountry, not a trail in sight other than what the animals are making, and then still have a rougher time getting out of some country, 6.5 miles back on an ATV trail, essentially. But it's like, that's an attribute. I know I try to max myself out, my potential, and what my legs and my body will handle, especially right now while we're still somewhat young. Thinking about getting old, it's like, goodness gracious. But I understand more why people have ATVs and side-by-sides. So I guess when I get to that point, I'll have to change up a little bit.
Yeah, no, and if you guys ever question, Nick's dexterity, he just said, I'm grateful I was carrying 4 quarters. Luckily, it was downhill. And so any of us who hike and everything like that know, when you have that added weight downhill, there's parts, especially if you're in the backwoods, that are just as tough as going uphill outside of the incline. With that weight almost pushing you essentially down, right? I mean,
and then you're leaned back the whole time walking downhill.
Yep.
That doesn't help at all. You try to lean forward a little bit, you lean a little too far forward, and you're going face first downhill.
Yep.
So, I mean, I tell that to people, though. I'm like, I would rather pack out uphill, in my opinion, versus downhill. It's definitely not as taxing balancing the weight going uphill compared to downhill. I feel a little bit more sure-footed leaning over against the slope rather than leaning away from it. But there's like I said, there's just so many times where it's just, again, bringing that experience out makes a huge difference, and spending time in the woods, which for out-of-staters it's a little hard, but no matter what, I think people need to really come here and experience these mountains before they just show up before a bow season or a rifle season. Taking those flatlanders out last year guiding is like the biggest complaint was breathing. They were like, oh, I walked 10 miles with a 40-pound pack on. Awesome. That's great. That is amazing. You didn't do it at altitude. You didn't do any altitude training. You didn't do any deprivation, for your lungs. That's the grueling part.
I mean,
oh yeah. It's so people underestimate what it truly takes to hunt elk and deer up here in the high country. That leads into what people need, as far as in themselves, personal skills and things like that. A lot of people can do it off a drive alone, but at some point at the end of the day, you still gotta put in the extra effort, not just past that mental toughness. Like David Goggins has probably the best mental toughness of anybody on the planet. And you come up here in high country and you really start losing that breath quick. I mean, Charles, you know what that's like, and you're born up here, bro.
Yeah, no, literally. I mean, there's times, and we've been on the mountain, and I mean, I'm like, man, I'm dying. I think one time Nick and I were hiking, my heart rate was like 215, 212 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like literally to the point where we're walking and I'm like seeing pieces of black.
Yeah.
And
I think a couple times hiking out, you were like, just leave me here.
Yeah, well, which would have been fine. I'd much rather die out in the woods than.
I know you say that, but I don't want to have to be the one to tell the family.
That's
Mom is going to be upset at me if I leave you up there.
Yeah, I know. I'd be happy though. I'd be fine.
Mama would kill Nick though, Charles.
Oh, she would tear me up, bro.
Yeah. Well,
and Dad would just be straight up disappointed. He wouldn't, he'd be quiet about it, but he would be so disappointed. You would see it in his face. So I couldn't do that. I'd have to just leave the packs, carry yourself back up there with me, and then come back for the packs later. I mean, it would not be a situation of leave you on the mountain. As much as I know that's where you would want to rest, I couldn't do that.
Well, I appreciate it that I haven't got to that point yet. So
I know, thankfully.
But no, it's nuts. Seriously, it's and again, to Nick's point, I literally have lived here my whole life, and obviously I got some underlying situations, but still, it's like you would think the body's so magnificent, right? You would think that
Mhm.
it could adjust, and uh, sometimes mine does, sometimes it doesn't. I don't really know how that works, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, there's high country hunts when I'm like, it's we've always heard, like that, like the bear, like "Arr," like that, and that's what I'm doing, but without the aggressiveness. It's just like me trying to grasp for air. I'm like,
Yeah.
like, I guess I'll go with a couple or with a memory or so. If
Yep.
Nick, did you say otherwise?
I'll tie into a little bit more of like what I think people need, attribute wise, but yeah, tell a couple stories for right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I guess my first one, we were talking about it earlier, so I'll use this is pronghorn hunting in Wyoming was one of the most abstract ways of hunting that I have ever experienced in my life. We went from hiking mountains, I mean, to driving on I-25 because there's wilderness area, or like there's like public land blocks in between private land on the side of the highway. I mean, it was a hop and fence type thing. It was insane. I remember we drove up. It's up northern Wyoming, and I'm trying to rest. I'm like, man, that's a 7-8 hour drive. Like, let's just chill, this, that, and whatever. And so I got my blue jeans on. I got some cowboy boots on, and I'm like trying to hang out. Just like, all right, it's the evening. We're just gonna throw a campfire together. They're like, all
He's
right,
trying
guys.
to fit in up there.
Man, like, all right, guys. 10 minutes. We're going. And I'm like, hunting. And they're like, yeah. I was like, we got 5 days. What are we doing? They're like, let's go. And I'm like, all right. And within 20 minutes, I was on it. I was on the antelope. Like, I mean, it was insane. And also those guys, it's the group of my friends there, Chris Myers, Andrew Malawat, and Neil Gillivan. Shout out to Jake as well. But the time there was unlike anything else. We would go into town every night because there's really, I mean, I say town with quotations around it. It's maybe smaller than Westcliff, Colorado, down where Nick lives. And
It's 10 times smaller than there. If I know where you're talking about, there was 8 people in the graduating class there.
so there you go. And there's a bar there. Shout out to the Invasion. That'll give a hint to some of you guys on where this is. And man, we would hang out and party till like 2 a.m. I'm like, man, it's 10 o'clock. I'm trying to go to sleep. Like, we got to hunt tomorrow. And then we wouldn't wake up to hunt till like 9 o'clock because it's there in the, dude, this antelope hunting. And I'm like,
Yeah.
For real? Like, what? And so, anyway, I say that to just say that whole dynamic really was amazing. I'm actually doing that same hunt this year. Maybe a different area, but with those same people. And
Awesome.
it was just, Nick alluded to it. The memories made are unlike anything else. I remember, talking about hunting with Nick. A couple of different instances on, I think, 2 different turkey hunts. But one, Ryan and I are up there and we're ready to rock and roll, man. We have these Nick has probably called these turkeys in maybe from 100 yards, and they're probably 20 yards. It's just thick brush. We can't see them. So we set up on this log, and man, all of a sudden, Nick, did you fart or sneeze?
No, I sneezed, and that
God.
that slate call slid off my leg and hit the ground, and it was just like the loudest, like a branch popping, basically. Oh my
And the
goodness!
turkeys went completely silent.
Completely. I just looked over at Charles and Ryan, and I was just like, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry."
That and prior to that, the first day, we're just kind of riding roads a little bit, basically the end of the hunt for the day, and there's a tom right in the road.
Yeah,
Allegedly,
strutting and
I
everything.
say allegedly. I didn't see this, but apparently he was there.
Charles was probably sleeping.
I was
No,
awake this time.
I
I
was to
just
say he
couldn't see
actually had
it.
his eyes open, surprisingly enough,
I was
and just
staring in that direction.
and
I
it
did
was
not
like
see it.
in the sunshine between like this tree tunnel. It was like turkey in the sun down the way a little bit. Well, a little bit. He was probably about 75, 80 yards out. But yeah, strutting, full tail fan out, like, and I was just like, Brian and I both are like, Charles, you don't see that thing? You don't see that thing?
And I couldn't tell you where it was at all. I don't. Did I ever see it? I think to this day I can't tell you. I don't know where the turkey was. I seriously don't.
Yeah. No, we hopped out. Ryan and I hopped out, and we tried to chase him down the hill a little bit, and he stayed hung up a little ways down from us, but it was like a quick little drop, so we didn't want to drop in on him. But yeah, we've had some good turkey hunts too. I always forget turkey hunting. It's not the glorious elk hunting that people always kind of look for, but there's some amazing learning experiences in that. I mean, golly, them birds are hard to hunt.
Yeah, I mean, you come out west to turkey hunt, and it's just like it's like whitetail hunting from a stand out east versus mule deer hunting, high altitude mule deer hunting. I mean, that's
Yeah.
literally the difference in contrast of turkey hunting out here. And then that I don't know if it's that same trip. I think maybe it's a different trip because Jer, shout out Jer, he had came down with me one time, and we had these tiny toms, but at like
Yeah, those
27.
jakes.
Yeah, Jake's, yeah. Like 27 yards. And I was like, dude, I don't even know if that's something I should shoot. But for whatever reason, and I don't know if I told you this, Nick, but I told Jared, and Jared's to the left of me, and these turkeys are in the front / to the right. So like if I'm a clock, they're at like my 130. And I
Mhm.
tell Jared, I put my legs like on the ground. I'm like, hey man, shoot. And he had a shotgun, I had a bow. And he had a shot. He's like, no, what are you talking about? And I was like, just shoot, just shoot.
That
Thankfully, he
was
did.
the first year. That was a rough year. We heard tons of birds.
Yeah, that was
We
wild.
had them. We had them close constantly, but just couldn't seal it. And then yeah, those Ryan and I were facing the other way, watching that other little
Yeah,
creek bottom, and all of a sudden we hear you yell, just start talking turkeys. And Ryan and I are like, we're not turning around. If you can shoot them, shoot them.
yeah, I should have shot.
That's all right.
I'm glad Jared didn't.
Yeah,
I stood
yeah.
on my legs. But yeah, no, that's just a funny one, man. I guess if I had to do one last quick story here, it was some cousins of mine, my dad, and my brother, and we were camping at this spot that we've never. In an area that we would go to yearly. But our campsite, like, we all have like an A, B, and C campsite, right? Like, oh, we camp here. Oh, well, we'll camp here. Oh, it's taken. Okay, we'll camp here. So we had to go to a completely different spot on maybe, I don't know, 60 acres of public land. Literally, like small. The road was public, and a half of a mountain that we camped right on the base of was public. And I like to joke around a little bit sometimes. And I get out the trailer in the morning, opening day with my brother, Zach. And I was like, hey Zach, some deer, but it was cows, like moo cows. And he's like, he gets all excited. He's probably like, I don't know, 16 or something like that. He's pumped up. And as he's like, oh, you're an idiot, because I was, it's too early. I mean, let's be real, it's sunlight. And I look to the left of the hill, or left of the cows, and I'll be damned if there's not 3 bucks there, and we have 3 buck tags in camp.
Mm.
By 8 a.m., we had 3 bucks down. It was insane.
Oh yeah.
Like it, because the whole dynamic, right, is like, oh, I'm messing with Zach. Of course, there's nothing on this 60 acres of public, this outside of a camping space, and some moo cows. And sure enough, there was three bucks, and dropped them all by 8 a.m. It was
Nice.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Total firing squad right there. It sounds like.
that's right.
It
That's
was.
right.
It was.
Getting after it.
Getting after it. Lane, do you have any stories or anything like that?
One of my first ever memories is with my dad and my uncle. We were up in Montana where I first started learning how to hunt, and we spent all day up there. My dad called me out of school that day, and we were like, "Oh, this will be fun." So we went out there and we covered probably about 30, 40 miles, and I had a deer and elk tag, and we didn't see anything, but that was like one of the first times I really realized like kind of what it really took to uh, hunt out there, was just because it was snow on the ground, Montana snow, and the weather up there. It was freezing, and I still remember to this day the first time I ever saw a jet boil. My uncle got it out, and we had buttered noodles for a quick lunch, just because he had a jet boil, and it was like, okay, I need to get one of those. And then of course, just all the times I've been out hunting with you guys, the turkey hunt, as well as, which is first and only time you guys have ever caught me sleeping. Um, and then probably overall this last year, that second season buck tag that Charles had, and that is still funny to this day because Charles tells us all exactly what to do, and then he drops this buck, and you just see him like stone cold Steve Austin walk up like he's not phased, and you just hear Zach and I, "Yeah, you got him. That's what I'm talking about." And he's all like,
I was
"Don't."
less than pleased.
He was like, "Don't touch me." It's like that, like, oh, okay,
Well,
too tough, huh?
I was so ready. And guys, I'm not a trophy hunter, just in case you're new listeners and nothing like that. Everyone on this podcast knows I'm not. But this was only my second ever true like preference point. This was calculated. I knew. Yeah, I had people searching the area. Shout out Jack Richens, prior and all this. Shout out Brian, and I knew. I was like, oh man, these animals are here. We've all seen them. Lane went to a wedding earlier in the year and saw a few big ones. And
Yeah.
Man, this whole hunt we scoured had to be 200 250 miles of land.
Yeah, we blasted this entire area for like 2 days.
3, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, 2.5, because then we were about to call it,
Did
and
you
then
come up the day after I got there?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Zach and I came up the day
That's
after,
right.
and we spent all day doing all this, um, scouring it, glassing it for 2.5 days, and then we finally go to this spot that our buddy said to go to, and sure
0
enough,
bucks, by the way, and in 2.5 days, 0 antlered deer.
yeah, the closest we saw was maybe like not even a buck, but the most deer we saw was about 1,000 yards out. The does.
Yeah, eating in a field.
Yeah.
That I mean, if I had a doe tag, I probably wasn't gonna go to. Being
No.
transparent, is on the side of a hill like elk would be. But yeah, I mean, and so like when it happened, Delane's point, I told him I was like, Buck, start recording Zach whistle, and because I knew exactly how this was gonna happen. And so I get where I need to be and prepared and set up and all that. and the animals start moving. The does actually run away. Remember, the does kind of jetted out.
The does bolted, and the buck is just strutting there,
just kind of moseying around and moseying that towards where the does are going, but not in any rush or anything like that. And Zach whistles twice, and on the second whistle, it just slowed up just enough to where I knew once he clears this branch, I'm gonna have vitals. Dropped him and was not happy. I mean, I got to work on that, man. That was
that was the most funniest thing in the whole world, because all you hear is Zach and I just cheering and like, yes, you got him, and then Charles, you just like, don't touch me.
Yeah.
Well, what's worse, Charles, doing that or celebrating early before we realized we missed an elk?
You know, transparency being 2020. I'm going to be honest with you. I think doing that, because
the deer.
Yes. Sorry, okay. I should have been more specific. Because, the elk, I was still excited. I think you and I talked about it a little bit after. It's like we were still in the woods, still had a tag in my pocket, and this in my head, and still today, I know I can drive there and find something nice. But I was like, man, the second I pull this trigger, this hunt is over.
Yeah.
Also the time. You know, my brother and I've hunted together pretty much his whole life, but we've never gone together, like in the same vehicle, in the same group. He's always been with my dad, with my older uncle, and things like that. And then, you know, having Lane there, getting after it with us also, I was like, damn, you know, all this for this. But since it is a podcast, since it's not on Instagram, we can actually play the recording. And I mean, just picture someone being completely staunch and mean almost after. Like, they were excited. Legit, Lane and Zach were pumped. You would have thought that we just killed a 200-inch buck, you know, 28 inches wide. I mean, just beautiful mule deer. And this is a great deer. By the way, I before I played the video, I was so pissed off. I ended up giving the I was like,
his exact words were, he's all like, I'm not keeping this. I was all like, I'll take the antlers. I don't care. And so now they're hanging up on my wall.
And so I'm watching this Randy Newberg episode of Matthew. Shout out Randy and Matt. Of Randy and them hunting where I almost can guarantee is the same area. I showed Lane. I was like, watch this video. There's literally the exact same roads we drove on. And then I'm starting to see all these deer, and I'm like, oh, my buck wasn't horrible. And so I texted Lane one day. I was like, hey man, like,
he's like, I'm gonna need that back.
I hate to do this.
No,
I swear.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so funny.
Do you guys want me to play it's a quick like 10, 12 second video or clip?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Do it.
Yes. And so we're all pumped up, or well, I'm not. They're all pumped up, and I'm just like, I'm halfway up the damn mountain. About to, I'm not. I told Lane and Zach, and I'm like, I'm gonna tag this thing,
and we're going home.
No, he literally was halfway up the hill at this point, and I'm like trying to like be like, okay, well, we gotta. I'm all going through the process in my head. Okay, now we gotta start. We're gonna have to start gutting it here. He's all like, no, we're just gonna drag it down and just throw it in the back of your truck. I was like, okay. So we just dragged it down, threw it in the back of the truck, and then we went there and we dressed it by the campsite there. But it was just he was halfway up the hill and just all madder than all be at the world at like I was expecting this to be like a 70-inch buck. It's like, no, this is actually a decent buck.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's definitely how it goes sometimes. I know Charles, he waited a long time to try to get something done mule deer wise, and I know that's definitely a tough pill to swallow, but you know, that's still better than tag soup on any given day. So
I 100% agree with that.
there's something to be taken from there too. But there's no matter what, it's still hunting. It's not anything else. There's so much ability, again, to improve and to see what you could do differently or to find a new area. There's so many chances, thankfully, to get into mule deer hunting, even here in Colorado as well as other states. It's not like waiting for some of the higher draw tags here in Colorado. There's so much ability to have chances, have opportunities, be out there with your brother and your best friend and, family in general. But I know that's definitely a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, I can see where he's coming from with it, due to the fact that, like, you've done all the research on it, and all these people. Well, in hindsight, I told Charles that it was so he was there before Zach and I got there. And when I say hindsight, I'll explain. Is there he got there, got camp all set up, and was there before all of us. And so we got there, and I was like, oh, so, and I saw the area that we were camping, and I was like, dude, we could just go straight up this road here back ways, and we're gonna see something. Though Charles, this guy who was there, got to the camping area after Charles, came up to Charles and was like, hey man, don't know where you're hunting this week, this weekend, all this kind of stuff. And Charles was all like, oh, I got some other places scouted out that I'm going to go to. And this guy was all like, well, I'm going to hunt up back here if that's okay. And Charles is all like, yeah, but then Charles is, because I had to leave before Charles could leave. The guy basically told Charles that he killed like a 6x7 buck back up in there or something along the lines of where it's like a massive one. Even though I told Charles, I was all like, dude, we should be hunting back up there.
Okay. Yeah, so that whole situation, I mean, Nick and Lane, both you guys have known, like, myself and family have been through a lot of adversity in the hills.
Yeah.
And backwoods really my whole life. That's not to be a woo me, it's me, like victim type stance. That's just a fact. And so when anyone comes with me with any type of respect in the backwoods, I truly like to be the quote poster child end quote of hunter etiquette. And so when he was like, hey, I'm gonna hunt back here, I didn't think to be like, okay, well, I mean, it's public land and there's 2,000 miles of it, so best of luck.
Yeah.
Instead, I was like, okay, yeah, we won't even go that way, and we didn't. To all of our credit, the whole camp didn't. But yeah, he's like, yeah, I've been hunting these woods for 35 years, and the best year of my life, huge 6x7.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, congratulations, dude.
No, that's how it goes on public land, and I wish more people are like you and that other gentleman. It's like actually talking to each other, trying to understand where you're going,
right?
And I took a good friend of mine. He's actually my old boss. I took him elk hunting one year, and we were going up into a spot where I know we've seen elk. Actually, Charles, you and I had gone in there once before, and on a bow hunt. We went up a little bit higher. This was second rifle, and we're walking through the drainage nice and quiet, taking our time. And all of a sudden I just hear a bunch of crashing, down below us on the ridge. And I was just like, that's not elk. Like, they're not following us up the hill. Well, sure enough, right at sunup, we're just starting to be able to see this nice little cut in this drainage. And there's two guys that are on the ridge line in the sun, walking right past us. And I try to whistle and like flag them down a little bit. Nothing. They keep their head down and just keep going, which is fine. And then we get up to the final spot where we wanted to sit. It was like a nice little marsh pocket. And 15, 20 minutes after we're sitting there, we hear them talking literally above us, like full on having a, loud conversation. And, that it speaks to so much, again, about those ethics of hunting, but it also speaks to my boss and I being able to adapt, and yeah. I think that's truly one of the best attributes you can have in today's public land hunting game is adaptability. It doesn't matter, what going into the hunt. There's going to be situations that change on the fly, and there's going to be pressure that you don't think is truly there, and all of a sudden comes up behind you or comes across a ridge, and you're looking at each other from opposite sides of a basin or a meadow or whatever. I related a lot to Gunnison. I absolutely love Gunnison. That country is just gorgeous. But I stopped hunting up there probably, I guess, like 2018, simply because of the pressure. And it wasn't a manner of there's not animals there anymore, or like they're getting moved around too much. It was just simply a manner of not being adaptable at that moment to understand what I needed to do differently. And, coming into a spot well before sunup, and then by the time the sun's lit, there's 4 other orange vests around you, which is not good in that situation, especially because 9 times out of 10 someone's pointing at someone else.
Yep.
And it's just, there's so many great tools like Onyx and Scout to Hunt and all these different mapping systems nowadays that really can hone you into, okay, well, there's 2 guys over here and there's a guy over here. Well, look, this spot looks open. Let's get over there. That's doable today, or let's make a game plan for another day. I'll probably preach it till I'm blue in the face. You have to be able to change your plan in a moment's notice and be willing to move or change tactics or anything like that. Being versatile out there goes beyond the gear you have, or even your drive. Honestly, it's just being able to see what's around you, what's happening, and think about what's going to be the next play.
Yeah, no, 100% correct, man. It's if you're not able to change and adapt in today's public land hunting, especially in lands like Colorado and Idaho, and for states that truly give non-residents a fair shake, then you're not gonna. I shouldn't say that. Then you're gonna be successful a lot less than you would be year in, year out. You're gonna see a lot less than you would year in, year out. Even land. I mean, not even animals, just new land. You always got to have like a plan A, B, C, and D when you're going to the backwoods. And sometimes those plans get fouled up on the first day. Sometimes they get fouled up on the day after you've been scouting. Watched you put a deer to bed, and you're like, oh man, tomorrow I'm gonna go get after it and get him. And then, like you said, 3 or 4 orange vests on the ridge at daybreak. And so you have to be able to change and adapt.
Yeah.
Speaking of that quality, let's first I want to say thank you to Guy from Western Contours. Everyone listening next week, which will be the week of April 1st, on April 6th, Nick, Lane, Ryan, and myself are actually going to be doing our podcast live from the Mile High Hunt and Fish Expo floor at the Gaylord Rocky Hotel. So it's a shout out to Western Contours for working with me and truly hooking that up for us. It's got to be cool. We're going to have studio equipment even more so than we do right now, and it'll be cool. I mean, if you guys are seeing this film, or if you guys are seeing this record, please stop by in the middle, and if you have a question, feel free to ask it. It'd be awesome to kind of do some on the fly Q&A. So just real quick there, but let's shift a little bit, a little lateral pivot, if you will. I'm going to ask this to both you guys, and then I'll answer it with my answers at the end. Nick and Lane, what to you guys makes a great outdoor person, qualities wise? It doesn't need to be a list. It can be a list. It's up to you guys, but just kind of free fall it right now.
Nick, do you want to take it first?
Go ahead. I feel like I've been talking the whole time.
Well, so what makes a great outdoors person in my book is just someone who isn't afraid to get after it, willing to kind of take life by the horns, as per se, and just go for it. I think the guys can attest to that as a huge quality is being able to just get out there and be able to just try. Granted, you might not always be successful, but I would say just 100% giving it your all and learning and adapting to the surroundings that you have. And also, kind of on the note of shout out to Cam Haynes, but what you do in the dark matters. Being able to put out that kind of toughness through it all.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I would say I kind of touched base on this a little bit here and there. A lot of it has to do with what you have inside of yourself. There's so many great people I have around me that push me continuously, and are motivating, and just want to see me successful as much as themselves. But it just comes down to, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to say to yourself to get it done? It's different strokes for different folks, to put it simply. For me, I kind of get flack for it, but I like to go in the woods and literally tell myself, I wanted this. I wanted that hard hike. I wanted those long miles. I wanted the cold mornings. I wanted it. I chose voluntarily. No one forced me to get up and do it. That's what helps me motivate myself. It's a quality that I like in myself. I don't put myself down, but I am constantly like, you chose to take this step. Now, what are you going to do to finish it to the end of the day, to the end of the hunt, to the end of the season, whatever it may be? And again, tying into that, it's about adaptability, having the understanding that things have changed the last 10, 15 years. There's so much more to learn continuously. Nothing is ever completely guaranteed. You have constants, wind, water, food, that those sort of things. Those are always constant for animals, no matter what. But that will change. Animals will have multiple pockets they know they can get away from people. They'll have multiple bedding areas. They'll have plenty of sources of water if they know what they're trying to do and where they're trying to go. And so understanding that, even in shed hunting, is has changed how I look at myself for hunting. I love to walk. I can walk anywhere. Truly, that's not trying to brag. That's not blowing up my ego. That is just the truth. You cannot show me an area that I wouldn't be willing to go into. Um, and having said that, there's just an adaptability of, okay, well, just because that area is tough and very few people are going there, maybe the animals don't go there very often. Maybe they only go there to winter. Maybe they, whatever the case may be. So, again, I think ethics is such a huge part of hunting. Your drive and ambition is such a huge part. Understanding your abilities is a huge part. But yeah, no matter what, I think learning on the fly, truly getting different experiences in different environments is what helps well-round, hunters in today's era. And that's what I hope to see out of myself. That's what I hope to see out of people around me. That's where I think people's heads need to be, more than, gears, gadgets, and this and that, which we'll talk about, like Charles mentioned, at the Mile High Expo. Definitely come down and say what's up to us. We always appreciate it. But yeah, just be adaptable, be able to learn as much as you can.
100%. I like that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Good stuff from both you guys. So I'd been thinking about this all day, really. So I would say number one for me would be a willingness to learn, to always learn. I used to, in my prior position, I used to teach like sand and finish schools, and you would always have like a 30-year-old contractor come in, stand in the back. He's there because maybe his wife made him go because she's part owner of the company, or maybe his crew had to go because they're just they're green to the craft, right? But he's in the back with his arms crossed. You can't tell him nothing that he doesn't know. And then we get to, I think, like our third or fourth slide, and it's called the $1 million question. And it says, have you been doing the same thing for X amount of years, or do you truly have X amount of years experience in learning new things,
Mm.
right? And so I take that with me in every facet. Obviously, like that's why I'm bringing it up on my on Harness Adrenaline's outdoor podcast, The Hills to Ripples, because you can truly use it in every single facet of your life, and it's so crucial. What used to drive me when I was in that position is the second that person uncrossed their arms and was willing to like maybe teach us something as a class, or we taught him something. He's like, wow, you can actually do that. He or she was like, wow, you can actually do that. And then you see the light bulb go off. And that's when everyone becomes a mad scientist and is like, wow, I need to add this to my toolbox. And so it's the same thing with our craft, right? The second you stop learning, I mean, in my opinion, you should just give up because there's no, you even hear people like Jim Shockey still say, hey, I'm still learning. Cam Haynes, these guys like Corey Jacobson, Randy Newberg, guys like that. I learn something new every day. I learn something from this person every day. And so if you're not, then you're doing something incorrect. To be transparent, putting in work when others are not, and that can be anything from, e-scouting to on the hoof scouting to getting after it in the gym. One of the Team USA guys, the year that Kobe's last year with Team USA, he had asked Kobe. I think all the guys went out. I don't remember where it was.
Yeah.
They're like, man, why are you working so hard? And he's like, because there's one of you mother effers trying to take my spot. And that's accurate. And I'm not saying everyone's out there for competition, but if you have that mentality, like Nick said, I can hike any mountain. That's what Nick said, right? I can, it doesn't matter what terrain it is, I can get after it. And so if you have that mentality within yourself, then you're going to outwork others. It might not be in a facet of hiking, it might not be in a facet of e-scouting, but it's going to be in a facet of something. And so you have to keep that relentless willingness. That has to be an attribute, I believe. And then, being open to trying new things, from species to new places, new clothing, new boots, weaponry, mapping systems, e-scouting. I mean, this community, this fraternity that we're in, if you will, think about this, right? From a primal state, our craft begun in like loincloths, bro, and arrowheads, to flannels and and blue jeans, along the Oregon coast type thing, to layering systems and technology like that. Like that's just clothes alone. Not to mention that brought true arrowheads to now broadheads from Iron Will. Shout out Iron Will. Bullets from old school Remington to now Nosler Accubons. I mean, be willing, be open, not even willing, be open to try new things, and don't be afraid of it. I mean, it can be overwhelming at times, but you have to be open to it to make yourself better. And then finally, understand and be a part of conservation in some way, shape, or form. I every year I talk to people, and I just think that when something is constantly on your mind, your like of a hobby becomes an obsession with getting after it. Right. So that change is what you need. And if you're constantly contributing to conservation, you're donating to the CRWM, Colorado's responsible for wildlife management. You're giving to these organizations, or you're attending these legislative meetings with the CPW and the state of Colorado legislature. Even if it's a virtual meeting, it's always on your mind. So that that one time a year hunting trip turns into a mid-March legislative meeting that you're attending that you actually ask 2 or 3 questions to the panel about. And if it stays on your mind, you truly you gain a care for it. So obviously none of those were exactly physical attributes on what builds a great outdoors man or woman person, but those truly, if you can encapsulate everything that we all just said, from Lane using Cam Hanes' quote, Nick's just mindset, like he was, hey, I can see it, I'm gonna get after it. If you can encapsulate all that, then you are your own greatest outdoors person. And I think that's pretty cool.
100%. I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's all I have. I mean,
cool. Lane, you want to lead us out?
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed today. And
wait. Next Tuesday, April 2nd, 8 p.m., Colorado draw deadline. Get your licenses, your draws in. Buy your preference points and do it. My bad.
All right. Well, don't forget to get your draws in. Thank you again. And don't hesitate to go check us out on Instagram at Harness Adrenaline and at our website at www.harnessadrenaline.com. Thank you all, and we hope you have a great rest of your time till we talk with you again.
Have a good day, guys.
Awesome, guys. Love you. You guys be good.
You too.